A gute Woche. The Rebbe soll gesund sein began to Farbrengen this afternoon that a matter which is appropriate to talk about is that Mishenichnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha. Once we enter into Adar, we have to increase in Simcha. Even though we already entered Adar on Friday, because Friday was the first day in the month of Adar. But nonetheless, when are we fully into Adar? That is after the first day passed. That means when we are already entering the Shabbos. So this right away tells us that this Shabbos calls for a marbin b'simcha, an increase in simcha, in a very strong and powerful way. The fact of serving the Rebishter amidst simcha is something which has to go on at all times. And as it is understood, from the fact that at all times we have to be serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of love, fulfilling the mitzvah of Yahavta es Hashem Elokecha. And as the Zohar says, Leis pulchene, ke pulchene derechimuse, there is no way of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is no avodah that can be compared to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of love, rechimuse meaning love, and love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is especially tied and related with simcha. And a yid at all times has to be penetrated with simcha. As it is understood from the Mishnah, what the Mishnah tells us, Chayiv Odom levorech al hara, kishem shemevorech al atova. Just like we are thankful and blessing HaKadosh Baruch Hu when God gives us something which we obviously can realize that it is good. The same way we have to be thankful to Him for the opposite. And what do we mean by thankful? As it's explained in Mefoshim, to accept it b'simcha. How much more so is it in all inyanim of Avodas Hashem that it has to be penetrated with simcha. And as it's also understood from what the Ramah tells us at the closing, at the end of Shulchan Aruch Orach Chayim, where he brings Toiv Leiv Mishta Tamid. And when we say tamid, it means constantly, at all times. One has to be in a position of mishta, in the position of feast. In other words, meaning in a position of simcha. And this is something which we have to fulfill in the simple meaning of it, in the meaning of pshat. Pshat, the simple meaning is something that comes prior to all other interpretations. However, when it comes, Mishenichnas Adar, has to be a yet stronger simcha, marbin b'simcha. Especially in fact, that today is Shabbos. And based on what Chazal tell us of Yom Simchascham, on your days of Simcha, Chazal say, Elu HaShabbosos, that is the days of Shabbos. And especially also that we are the third special day in a row, in a sequence. First we had 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, and from the 2 days of Rosh Chodesh we are entering into Shabbos. So 3 special days in a row. Similar to the beginning of this year. This year began also in such a way. The year began with 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, and from the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah we entered into Shabbos. However, when it comes to this increase in simcha which is demanded from us and the month of Adar, here the Rebishter gives us a special strength that we should be able to fulfill it. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever He requests, He gives us the strength to be able to do it. And He gives us this power, miyodoi, hamleya, hapsucha, hakdoisha, v'harchava, as we say in benching. And as it is written in the Baal Shem Tov Siddur, there, instead of the word hakdoisha, your holy hand, the Baal Shem Tov writes hagdusha with a gimel. Godush in Hebrew means an overflow. The Rebishter gives us not just a filled up cup, a filled up vessel of brachas. The Rebishter gives us His blessing in an overflow. The vessel is being overflowed with bracha. And this type of an avodah of simcha is, as the expression, as the Rebbe used an expression recently in Farbrengen, and referred to it again yesterday, ufaratzta, within ufaratzta. In other words, within, going out of limitations, above medida v'hagbalah, ufaratzta, within ufaratzta. Because when we're talking about the regular avodah of bechol ma'oitcha, loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with B'chol me'oitcha in an unlimited way. However, here we know at the same time there's still a stress. Me'oitcha, the unlimited fashion of each and every person cannot be compared. What is considered limitation by one is considered by another one out of his limitation. It cannot be compared, the beligvul, from one person to another. However, when we are talking ufaratzta, within ufaratzta, that means above all types of limitations. Above limitation, within above limitation. And this is suitable to the Avodah of this year. We are already into the year of Arenu Niflois. When we are saying Niflois, Niflois means above the realm of limitation. In fact, as it's brought out, that the wonders that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us, La'asid Lavai, when Mashiach will come, will be yet greater and in no comparison to the Nisim, to the miracles which we had when we went out of Mitzrayim. We have to do all this in the format of Yelchu Mechayil El Choyil, going from step to step higher and higher, especially we're already into Shabbos. We have already passed 3 of the Tfilos of Shabbos. And all of this will lead to it, that the Rebishter will hasten his Geula to us, the Geula that will affect all of us, B'nareinu B'skonenu, with our young and with our old, B'vaneinu B'vneiseinu, everyone, all together we will go to Eretz HaKodesh, to Ir HaKodesh, and to Har HaKodesh, with the Beis HaMikdash, and all of this will happen immediately. The Rebbe continued, there is the Yerushalmi that says on the Pasuk in the Megillah, V'hachodesh asher nepach miyogan l'simcha. The Yerushalmi says, usually a Yontif, we celebrate the day of the Yontif, or the day before, which is called Erev Yontif, the day afterwards, which is called Yisro Chag. By Purim, there's something special. The entire month was converted. Instead of it being a month of sorrow, which Haman planned on doing, it turned into a month of joy, a month of happiness. And that is why the Yerushalmi tells us a halacha, that should a person be in a position where he will not be able to hear the Megillah on Purim, he will not have the Megillah on Purim, and he's aware about it in advance, Yerushalmi tells us that he may read the Megillah any time during the month. And this is based on this pasuk. However, this means only the days that are within the month of Adar. For example, the first day of Rosh Chodesh Adar, though it is called Rosh Chodesh Adar, the first day of Rosh Chodesh, but nonetheless, being that the date of that day is Lamed Shvat, 30 days in the month of Shvat, so it is Lamed Shvat. That is why on that day we will not be able to read the Megillah. However, as of the beginning of the month of Adar, then we can already read the Megillah. And from this special month of Adar, we are continuing into another special month. And in fact, a yet greater month, the month of Nisan. The Gemara tells us, Mismach Geula LaGeula. We put together 2 months of Geula, one next to another, the month of Adar and the month of Nisan. However, the Geula which took place in Adar is, as the Gemara uses the expression, Akati Avdi de Achashverosh Anan. We are still enslaved to Achashverosh. It was a Geula, but the Yidden still remained in Golas. However, the Geula which took place in the month of Nisan was such that this was a Geula that the Yidden totally went out of Golas. And from this very special month of Nisan, we continue into another special month, the month of Iyar, which Iyar abbreviates Avram, Yitzchak, Yankov, Rachel. And from then we go to the month of Siv, which Siv is the month of Matan Torah, and Matan Torah has a very strong relation to the idea of Purim, because as the Gemara tells us, what happened by Nes Purim was Kimu Mashikiblu Kvar. The Yidden reaffirmed their commitment to Matan Torah. Matan Torah took place in Sivan, but in the month of Adar, when the Nes Purim took place, that is when they reaffirmed their commitment to Matan Torah. The Rebbe is concluding the main thing that should be that even while we are still in Golas, for the remainder of time that we are in Golas, just like by Nes Purim, Mordechai became a Mishnah LaMelech, And all of this brought harchava to the Jews. The same should be the remainder time that the Yidden are in Golis. Yidden should be in a way that they should not be lacking anything. As the Rambam explains, what is the whole union of schar gashmi? So the Rambam says that all of this is so that Yidden should be in a convenience, that they should be able to fulfill all the matters of Torah mitzvahs. This also has a shayches to the Sedre which was read today. Pashas Terumah, which Pashas Terumah begins, V'yikhu li Terumah. The Rebishter is telling Yidden that Yidden should contribute Terumah, li, to me, to Hashem. And as Rashi comments, what does li mean? Lishmi, for the sake of Hashem. In other words, each and every Yid is given this special power, that he can take his Gashmias, and his Gashmi should be elevated to such an extent that it becomes Kiddusha for the name of Hashem. A Yid gives of himself, and this every Yid is capable to do. Because again, Terumah consists of the word Torah Mem. Torah, which we have from Moshe Rabbeinu spending 40 days Lamaila when he went to receive the Torah. So, Mem, number 40, relating to Torah, brings out the shleimus, how Torah in its whole and completeness. And this is something which relates to each and every Jew. Because each and every Jew has his relationship to Torah. As long as he's Kehilas Yaakov, as long as he's a descendant of Yaakov, so as we say, Torah tziva lonu Moshe, Meirasha Kehilas Yaakov. Torah is given as an inheritance. And each and every Jew can inherit. Just like children do not need any special preparation to inherit, as long as they are children. The same is regarding Torah. And every Yid has this koyach that he can give of himself. Just like we find regarding a kolb. So it's explained the Chassidus on the pasuk, Odom ki yakriv mikem kolban Hashem. The Chassidus brings out at length that the proper grammar should have been Odom mikem ki yakriv kolban Hashem. What is the taich Odom ki yakriv mikem kolban? That when a Yid gives a kolban, he has to give of himself. The self-sacrifice that he's giving himself, all his talents and all of whatever he possesses, he's giving of himself to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And here the Gemara tells us that when regarding korbanos, the Gemara uses the expression echad hamarbe ve'echad hamamit. There's one that can afford more, there's one that can afford less, and everybody is welcomed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Rebbe, the taich is echad hamarbe ve'echad hamamit. When one gives more or he gives less, that's irrelevant. As long as there is the echad that is functioning within him, his relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in its fullest and strongest position. That is what counts. When there's an echad in the marbe, as well as the echad in the mamit, that is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu appreciates, and that is what the Rebishter goes for. And then the Yid is capable to bring godliness into this world, and the world is brought to a position of v'hoisel Hashem amlucha, and what will be when Mashiach will come, Bayoimahu Yiyeh, Hashem Echad, Ushmoy Echad, all of this will be felt in this world. And we continue right after we say this in Aleinu, we continue right away with Al Tira Mepachat Pisoim, that a Yid should not be afraid of this. The Rebishter will see to it that it will happen. Just like by Geulas Purim, what happened was that the Rebishter destroyed Haman. The same thing, the Haman that is in each and every generation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is involved in destroying him, his children, and his grandchildren, until there is nothing left of him. And what happens is, what the Rebishter accomplishes is, that all that can come out of Goyim is that Umas Olam should be a help and an assistance to Yidden. As the Pasuk tells us, La'ovdoi kulam shechem echad. All to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, totally united, with one shoulder. And then we will be Zeiche to the Geula Amitis V'Ashleima. And this Geula will be immediately in a midst Simcha V'Tuv Lavav. There was a group of guests here at the Farbrengen, French-speaking guests. The Rebbe turned to them and the Rebbe said in French, being that there is a group here for this Shabbos, French-speaking people, definitely they will be given to say l'chaim, a big l'chaim, and then they will also sing a nigun which originated from their country. And the Rebbe began to sing the Haderes V'Amuna. As we spoke earlier, the relationship to the Pashas HaShavua. The Rebbe continued the Hayarah B'Negei L'Poyeles, that each and every Yid has to fulfill, to give of his private earnings, at least a tenth, or whenever possible, a fifth, 20%. And as the Gemara uses the expression hamivazbes, the one that's giving tzedakah in a splurgy way, he shouldn't give more than a fifth. But as the Alter Rebbe explains in Igeres HaTshuvah, when one gives tzedakah and he gives it in order to redeem himself from days of fast and so forth, then it's not called an inyan of splurge. On the contrary, just like there's an inyan of curing one's goof, and the person spends money on that, the same thing is regarding curing a person's neshama. And this adds in his health, in the spiritual health, as well as in the gashmistic health of him and of his family, until it reaches each and every yid. And this is also that in this week's Chazarah we find three various ways of giving tzedakah. And this is expressed in the three types of contributions: zahav, kesef, and nechoshes. Gold, silver, and copper. And it's brought in Svarim that zahav refers to Zeh Hanoisein Bari, abbreviation. That is the person that gives tzedakah. When he's healthy, everything is fine, and nonetheless he knows he's giving tzedakah. Kesef, silver, is already a lower level. Kesef abbreviates Kisharoye Sakona, or Kisharoye Safek Paida, when he sees a dangerous situation, or he sees some kinds of doubts, he comes in a position when he's in the dilemma of something. That is when he goes ahead and redeems and gives tzedakah. Then there's a third level of giving tzedakah, and that is nechoshes. Nechoshes abbreviates copper. Copper abbreviates nesinas choyle, the giving of a sick person, sha'amartnu, that he said to go ahead and give tzedakah. The Rebbe says when we're talking about a sick person, it doesn't chas v'sholem mean that he should chas v'sholem be sick. He didn't have to be healthy. But perhaps there's somewhere a yid that is in the level of choyle, because choyle abbreviates 49, meaning that he only has the 49 gates of wisdom, and he's lacking the 50th gate of wisdom. So we say, but through the giving of tzedakah, he will be able to achieve that as well. And hopefully we will soon be able to fulfill the Ve'osuli Mikdash in the true sense, that the Rebbe will give us the third Beis HaMikdash, which the third Beis HaMikdash is already built, and all that the Rebbe has to do, he has to give it to us, release it to us. The only thing is brought in Poskim that Yidden will also have a share. Yidden will also do something, some sort of a participation in the gates of the Beis HaMikdash. But other than that, the Beis HaMikdash is already ready, and the Rebbe will give it to us. And from Pashas Terumah we are entering into Pashas Tetzaveh. Pashas Tetzaveh talks about the menorah which was lit me'erev ad boker. Me'erev ad boker, constantly, tmidius, on a constant format, until we will come to the final stage of Giyul. The Rebbe reminded in a very strong way that it is appropriate that we should plan Mifza Purim. Though, we are constantly waiting for Mashiach to come. And when we say we are waiting for Mashiach to come, it's not just, we are waiting for him to come any day. That's part of the hope of Mashiach, that we are hoping for Mashiach, and hoping for Mashiach, that's part of the belief in Mashiach. Is the Rambam writes. So the hoping for Mashiach is that Mashiach will come any day. But nonetheless, the Frierdiker Rebbe has taught us that we have to plan things in advance as well, and that is why we have to plan for Purim, to see to it that each and every Yid will celebrate Purim properly, celebrated the proper way, beginning from here, from Brooklyn, the Beis HaKnesses and Beis HaMedrash and Beis Ma'asem Tovim, from the Sidareinu, from here to come to all other shuls. And and bringing the simcha of Purim to each and every one, to men, to women, to children. And when we see, the nature is that when we see children happy, this brings happiness to the adults as well. And especially that we are already in a time when we see things happening in the world, that even these countries that were known for the fact that their entire existence was denial in the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even they too have changed their views recently, and they too are already believing in the Creator of the world, and that the world is led by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we are already ready for Geulah, and waiting for the coming of Mashiach. And everything which we have to do to prepare for Purim. And it will be done in a way that everybody should participate. The older brothers and the older sisters and the parents and the entire family, everybody will participate in Purim. And from the Toiv Leiv Mishte Tamid, which this is the concluding words of the Ramah and the part of the Shulchan Aruch Orach, we will also come to the Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat, meaning that we will come to the time when we will have the Kohen Gadol in the Beis Hamikdash wearing the Choshen Mishpat, and all of this will happen instantly. I'm also reminded that this Wednesday is the Yortzeit of the Menahel Poyel, the one who was actually in charge of Yeshivas Timchat Mimim, that is referring to the Rabbi Zalgazon's brother-in-law, Rabbi Grari, as he's known, Kashag, whose Yortzeit is this Wednesday, Vav Adar. And he writes in that even before that, it should be Kitzu V'Hanan U'Sheich Ne'Yafa, and he amongst them, and all the people from that generation, and from previous generations, and especially that he was so involved in a Moised where Pnimi Yisatayra is together with Nigla is being taught Al Taras HaKodesh, and also the spreading of the wellsprings of Chassidus until it reaches out Chutzos coming out of there. And all of this will lead to the coming of Mashiach, and it'll be, the Geula will be Tekef Umiyad Mamish, meaning instantly. Agutevach.